All right, if you were watching the M series short on this lovely Gateway laptop, I switched over to long form here just to see uh, what we've got going on. No OS found. Finally, after a couple minutes here of waiting, exceptionally slow. So interesting without an operating system. I'm not really sure if we're going to be able to get this to boot, but we know it boots, and other than being dirty, everything seems to be in good working order. With all the noise I'm hearing down here, which is probably a fan, I'm wondering if we've got a bad hard drive or if it's just a blank hard drive. Either one is very possible. But while I was working on my beast of an HP underneath, I did actually find an interesting peripheral that we could try to get this working here, which is a USB floppy drive made by VST, Teak. Let's plug this in and just see if this will help. All right, so the good news is that the drive totally works. It fired up as soon as I put in a floppy. I heard it spin up. So going ahead and checking the media. Cancel the network boot. No OS. So we're going to try and get out of the PXE here. Yeah, keeps wanting to boot off of a network. So let's try and hit the reset. And maybe, if we're lucky, I can get this to boot to Calibri off a floppy here. Let's go into... Oop, I was a little too slow for BIOS settings. So let's go ahead and try this again. And F2 our way into a boot menu. All right, first we can get a look at the system here. I've got a 2.1 gigahertz Turion X2. Pretty nice. Looks like we might have a bad battery, which is to be expected. And let's see here. Legacy USB is enabled. That's good. That's what's powering up our floppy here. So boot from CD, USB. That's our boot order. Let's see here. All right, so it's going to let us go ahead and boot right to that floppy. So let's go ahead and we'll just save our config changes and see if it boots from the floppy here. Definitely give it some time. So I'm going to guess that probably the OS not found, the media test failure is related to a hard drive that's not in this anymore. That's my first guess, but I'm not going to say I'm 100% certain that's what it is. My main issue here is that it's not moving past that, and it keeps retesting. So we may have to actually check the internal components on this. Yeah, because the PXE ROM is not really allowing us to get around what we want to get around here. So let's go ahead and let's reset and try the F10 to get the boots to where we want it to go. All right, we're going to try and go USB floppy drive boot. Still takes us into that PXE ROM. And I am not totally familiar with this. This is the second time I've seen it on a system. This week, actually. It must be a laptop thing. I'm not really certain if this is something that can be bypassed or not. All right, so we're going to go ahead and try and bypass our PXE by disabling the LAN boot on here. Go ahead and save our config changes and exit. Again, I think we have a dead battery in here, so as long as this is on and plugged in, it should save until we actually power off the system. So hopefully it's got a floppy boot and potentially a hard drive. Okay, so we bypass PXE. It's still saying operating system not found. That's definitely on the hard disk. So, okay, so we know that the hard disk is probably not present. So let's go ahead and bypass the hard disk option. Although floppy drive is on there ahead of hard drive. Let's just go into the boot menu and do the USB floppy drive. Let's see if it works this way. Yeah, OS not found. Odd. Really odd, because this is the Colibri disk and absolutely should be there. It may be that Colibri just doesn't have relevant drivers for this system. Not sure. Yeah, still not found. All right, well, that at least answers that question. All right, so we're still looking at this gateway because I have questions that need answers. And one, this thing runs awfully hot. The cool thing is the Turion here, the dual core, is actually a mounted, not soldered CPU. And boy, does this thing run hot. I mean, this heatsink wasn't on for very long and not under a lot of duress, and it is toasty. Hard to hold my fingers on it. We've got fully loaded RAM. Let's just see what kind of SODIMMs we're working with here. PC2, 2 gigabyte sticks. Be interesting to see if this could be upgraded. I've got a lot of PC2 on hand. Something we can consider in the future if we can get this thing running. The other interesting piece is it has a hard drive installed. So this drive, which looks like a solid state or a SATA drive for sure, should be bootable. It just may not have an operating system on it. So it's an old Vista candidate. I believe I have a Windows 7 disk somewhere. So we'll call this a work in progress.